Hello, and welcome to the Surplus Geek Podcast. I'm Jake, and today, before we start talking to Matt about video game development and his life and where he grew up and such, I wanted to do a little update because this is the first podcast in a while. I've been extremely busy with life, and I would have already probably have had an episode out, or not an episode, but a video out. But my GPU died in late September, early October, and as anyone that knows anything about the current GPU market, it's kind of hard to get a new GPU without breaking the bank. So that put a huge halt on my ability to get anything done. And I've only just been able to start working on it in the last couple of weeks here. So I wanted to get me and Matt together, and obviously this is also over Discord. Unfortunately, the quality isn't the greatest, so I apologize in advance for that. But with that being said, let's just get into it. It's just going to pick up right from there, and hope you guys enjoy. So it's going to be a little bit different. It's not really about Surplus per se. It's more about video game development and such. So let's just get into it. All right. So with that intro aside, we now have our virtual sit down with Matt. And Matt, take it away with where you grew up.
Well, hello. I am Matt. So, I'm Matt. I am a game developer. I work for one of the largest studios in the world, really. And I grew up in Saudi Arabia.
Yeah,
Isn't
and
that cool?
it's Raven for anyone that wants to know the specific studio. But so
I make the Call of Duty games.
yeah, he's got
I'm the only developer, so you can complain at me.
always request refunds from him. But
I also made Squad, so you can complain at me about Squad.
we'll have to. I don't forget, but we have to talk about that at the end because Squad is its
I also
own
made
beast.
PR. I'm the sole developer on PR.
We're going reverse in terms of where you started, but so besides the whole very detailed game development history here, you started you were you born in Saudi Arabia?
Yeah, I was born in Saudi Arabia on the American oil company compound, Aramco, like the huge campus for expats, or expatriates as you want to call them. And yeah, I was born at the hospital there. I think it was called John. Actually, no, I don't think it was called Johns Hopkins. I think they just changed the name years later to Johns Hopkins,
Huh. So
which is kind of interesting.
both your parents are obviously Americans.
Yes, they are
Yeah.
American. They actually, before Saudi Arabia, they were living in Doha, Qatar, and they were around for basically the Gulf War there. And yeah, fun little story. They used to host parties for the Air Force guys.
Huh. So yeah, so your family, so and they're from Texas. So you guys are
Yep.
Texas family living in the Middle East during some of the more crazy time period for the Middle East.
Yeah. Tell me about it.
Were actually in Saudi Arabia during one of the most important dates in history at this point.
Yeah, 9/11. I still remember it exactly. Like, I was in 4th grade, coming home. This is around 4 p.m., I would say, Middle Eastern time. Coming home, seeing my father up standing in front of the TV, and just seeing those Twin Towers on fire. I mean, I'll say during around that time, from what I remember, it was not very nice to be an expat there.
Yeah. I'm assuming that the security got increased post 9/11 for you guys.
Oh yeah, I mean, I remember post 9/11 and pre 9/11, there was like hardly any security. Then after 9/11, there was like security checkpoints all over the place. Like I remember there was this gun truck in front of the main gate, and it has like an MG3 and all that stuff. Like I even remember hearing about rumors after the 2004 Kobar massacre, I believe it's called. on Wikipedia. I was still living there at the time in 2004, when Al Qaeda decided to, party in Kobar, massacring a bunch of expats.
So
But
you
anyways,
guys, so you were actually living there even into the invasion of Iraq then.
yeah, I remember
Wow,
that. Like I remember
that's
watching
crazy.
CNN. Yeah.
That's pretty crazy. So I mean, and that's a significant life experience to live not only in a foreign country, but to live in a foreign country that's right next to
Like
this
where all
massive
this stuff is
event.
going on.
Yeah, this massive event that in the last 20 years, it really changes the shape of the world. For better or worse. I mean, that's up to you know anyone's opinion, but that's huge. And then so you basically spent your formative years there. When did you end up moving back to the United States, and where did that take you?
Well, like I was talking about with the Kobar massacre in 2004, I think, or 5. It's one of those years. I think it's 2004. Um, right after that happened, uh, pretty much a lot of expat families ended up leaving Saudi Arabia. Uh, my family, we left like a month later, except for my father. My father stuck around uh, to continue working, and he worked there up until like last year.
Wow,
Um, yeah, so I ended up leaving the Middle East, yeah, in 2005.
probably a good time to leave. Yeah,
Yeah,
and then you ended up what? Where did
I
you end up going to school
oh,
after that?
I was homeschooled after. Well, I was always homeschooled, to be honest. Um, so what was I gonna say? So after we moved back to the States, um, I was homeschooled up until about 2007 for until my sophomore year of high school, and that was when I was sent off to boarding school because I was a little butthole. No, I wasn't. Um, it
little,
just
little
no,
problem child.
yeah, I was a little problem child. No, I was just sent off to boarding school because
It was just
the
easier.
co- well, no, the company actually paid for my dad's company actually paid full price for boarding school, and the reason why was because in Aramco, they have their own schools for for the Westerners that lived on the camp,
Yeah.
but the school only went up to ninth grade, so
Oh, okay.
that's why they decided to like I guess ship kids off to boarding school.
Yeah. So,
Yeah,
so basically, they were making up for the lack of they were finishing their education because they didn't have
yeah,
it built in. It makes sense. Makes sense. I mean,
yeah.
it also makes sense that your parents would take advantage of it, send you to a boarding school because
I
they
don't know,
could,
right?
So it makes sense. So you go to boarding school, you do that. The boarding school was where did you say?
It was up in Vermont. I went to boarding school up in Vermont for 3 years and graduated in 2010. It was pretty cool, I guess, and that was, like, the first time I saw snow too, so it was quite wild. I mean, growing up in the desert where everything's gray and s desaturated and just not fun.
Yeah, it's like growing up
Um,
in New Vegas.
yeah, it really was. I mean, I just remember I just remember it just being so hazy, like, gray haze in the Middle East. And then coming back to the States, everything just felt so vibrant.
Oh, especially in
Even though
Vermont.
yeah, especially up in Vermont, especially when there's, like, actual seasonal changes.
Oh yeah, dude. New England's got
Yeah,
the
yeah,
best fall. So
yeah, I graduated in 2010 up in Vermont. I actually ended up sticking around in New England up until, uh, 20 2012, I would say. I think that was when I went back home to Texas because, I mean, after I graduated high school, I didn't know what I was wanted to do. I mean, I originally wanted to join the military, which did not happen for various reasons.
yeah,
But
unfortunately, I know that your health prevented that, but
yeah,
that happens. I know a lot of guys that a lot of people that couldn't join because of their health. Um,
yeah,
and it's not even that you're not healthy; it's just it's something stupid. But
Something
so
really dumb.
yeah. So you end up going home. I know you eventually go to college, because
Yeah.
you go to a college near me that I know a few people that went to, and you didn't enjoy it, and they didn't enjoy it either. So nothing against this college, but I've heard some bad things.
Well, the college they offered a program that that I wanted to get into. And the thing was, I was already doing it by myself. It's just that my parents were like, "Okay, you need to go to school or get a job." So I was like, "Okay, well, I'll go to school then." And I ended up going to Southern New Hampshire University because they had a program for game art. I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna learn some game art." Because around this time, I was doing some Project Reality stuff, just modding by myself. Making the whole game. No, I wasn't. I was just texturing models and stuff. But yeah, I mean, after like spending a year at Southern New Hampshire, I, I ended up going to a different school, which led me to a lot more connections.
Yeah, your change from SNU to what will be, I know
Sham,
it's Champlain in
Champlain,
Vermont.
yeah,
You find
Champlain.
yourself back in Vermont, which is funny.
I know,
But
right?
but Champlain, anyone that's out there listening to this that wants to go into game design, Champlain is definitely one of the ones to look at.
Oh,
It's a
I would.
very nice school and a nice campus and a
It's a
great
very
program.
expensive school, I'll tell you that.
That's true too. Yes.
But the program there, they did a really nice job for like how they structured it because they didn't take it as like as a gimmick. Because a lot of schools, I mean, teaching game development, especially in specific disciplines like the art discipline, the design discipline, producer, programmer, etc. Um, no one knows how to structure those, and surprisingly, Champlain actually structured them and split them up into different discipline programs that you could get a degree in. So I ended up going through the art program because I don't know. I guess I'm an artist.
Yeah, I'd say you're an artist.
So
Yeah, and it makes sense. I had the same problem. I didn't go to SNU, obviously. I went to a different college, but I had the same problem when I went to college, where and this was an issue going back the last 2 decades with colleges and game design, where they just a lot of colleges wanted to have the program, but didn't know where to go directionally with the programs. And I had that issue. It's one of the reasons why I dropped out was because I didn't really fit into college that well, and
oh, I didn't
I
fit in
just
college.
yeah, and then I was looking at the program and it was like, "Oh, this is not what I wanna do." If this is what game design was, that really I was like, "Oh, this is not my thing."
Well, I think the
And
part of the problem is that most schools they don't split the disciplines. They kind of just lump it all in one.
yeah, well, mine was game design fell underneath interactive media, but it was like a sub-program, so it wasn't even really it was already being, cut down even further in being
Yeah.
simplified and stuff. So you weren't getting a full rounded education as far as, in game design, like you said, it's just like making a movie or anything else where there's tons of variety in game development for jobs. So side note, because anyone well, anyone who's played mods, specifically Project Reality is a fantastic mod. I mean, it was in development before Battlefield 2 even came out. People
Yeah.
were they're already looking to mod Battlefield 2. If you haven't played Project Reality, it's a classic. I
Yeah.
mean, I haven't played it in a while, but it's a
I
classic.
encourage anyone to try it out because there's still people playing it. Like I was playing it with a different group of friends uh, a few weeks ago, and we were having a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's still being developed.
Yeah.
This is 16 years of development at this stage. And yeah, and that's where you get your kind of your I would say your taste for digital art and whatnot.
Yeah, I mean, how what I was doing at the time is I had a copy, a friend's copy of of Photoshop, and I learned how to open up like the .dds files that Battlefield 2 used for their texture files. And from there, I was just doodling around and retexturing things. Like, really, it started out. I remember I took the U.S. soldier texture and basically turned that texture into from Marpet to UCP camouflage. And then I got really more in depth with it, and I started painting in certain details to change the vest into the MTV body armor that they were using at that time. And yeah, I mean, that was like when I started getting into the whole digital art stuff for games.
Yeah,
Just
and for anyone that doesn't know, at the time, what he's talking about, they didn't have the U.S. Army as a faction, as a sub faction. It was just the Marines.
yeah.
So they had to add in the Army, all the assets that come into that, and the changes of the obviously different camouflage, different body armor. So that was like what, point 0.8,
No,
point
no.
point seven
Was
five.
it? Was it 0.8?
I don't know. It was in
Might
that
have.
ballpark.
It was around 0.75, 0.8, I think.
Yeah, and not to go too far into Project Reality, but it's just one of those things where Project Reality, that's how we know each other. So Project Reality is significant in more than one
Yeah.
way. Um, and then eventually, you're doing college, you get involved in what was originally supposed to be PR2, and that was a different spin-off that went into a different direction
Well,
and died in a nice little
PR2
hole.
PR2 was like the in between. I mean, I was still working on not Squad. I was still working on PR, Project Reality at the time, and I remember hearing about PR2. Like people wanted to do PR2, do this and that. Then there was this guy. I think he went by the name Foxhound. He just I don't know, for some reason we started talking and started recruiting some dudes, and that's when I got a little involved with PR2. And yeah, I mean, we were starting to get somewhere. We switched up from, I think it was the UDK engine to CryEngine, which was a terrible choice in my opinion.
Yeah,
Well,
at the time,
looking back now, it was a terrible choice
yeah.
because CryEngine is so limited and it's not programmer friendly.
And for
Um,
anyone to know why they were going to do PR2 was when they made the mod, the mod was limited by the engine that Battlefield was using, and
yeah,
obviously it was the mod, so you're limited on certain hard-coded
yeah.
elements.
But you know what?
CryEngine at the time, though, was like it was huge. It looked like it was going to be the next big thing, and it just never ended up
Yeah.
getting off
Well,
the ground like
the
Unreal did.
the problem I think people have, well, the problem I think a lot of plebs, no, a lot of normal gamers think is that pretty graphics equals better game engine, right? Which is not the case. There's a lot of things that goes involved with the game engine. It could be like the tools, the ease of use, the editor, and any of the stuff that's underneath that makes the game engine run. That's what makes a good game engine.
Well, I would
I
say
mean,
Crisis is a great example of that because it's a fantastic looking game and it even still holds up to this day, but it was never like fantastic gameplay. It was like pretty, oh, it was okay gameplay. Some of it was fun, some of it was kind of,
well,
it's
I mean, Crysis is a great game. Don't get me wrong, but I think the misconception that people get about game engines is pretty equals better, which is not the case. It's all about ease of use that makes a great game engine,
oh yeah, that's for
and
sure. There's a lot of games
and
out there that don't meet the
that's
pretty
why
definition.
yeah, and that's why UDK Unreal Engine 3 was so good because it was so easy to use and you can make it look pretty. Although it did have that very classic Unreal look that a lot of games had at that time period. Like you could just tell that was an Unreal game.
Well, Rising Storm 1 was on UDQ,
R-
it was on Unreal 3, right?
No, that was on Unreal
Four?
Engine 2.
Oh, that was 2? Wow.
Yeah, so the cool story about Tripwire is that when they made a what was it? Red Orchestra, they ended up winning, I think it was one of the mod database uh mod of the years, and one of the what was it, awards was a license for Unreal Engine 2 or something.
Oh, that's right. That is
And
how
that's
they
when
ended up
they
getting started. Yep.
yeah, and that's when they turned it into like an actual company and started selling it commercially. But anyways,
But yeah, so you, you work on PR2, it kind of dies because it just never
it
had
just
a
wasn't going
chance.
anywhere. Yeah,
Yeah.
PR2 just wasn't going anywhere. I mean, problem is no one the problem is that didn't have anyone that was working on prototyping. because prototyping is like the biggest thing. I mean, you just start building the building blocks, and that's. I mean, we could do all the fancy art we want, right? But if you don't have a build that works, then there's no point.
Yeah, you got to have the basics in line
Yeah.
before you even put the cool looking stuff in. Yeah.
Yeah.
And that
So
leads you to
Squad. Yeah. So I remember I forgot who. Well, I think no, Sniper Dog also who is Merlin on the squad forums, I think, who's Will Stahl, the CEO of the time. He reached out to me and mentioned that he was working on a spiritual successor to Squad with a bunch of other PR guys that were really dedicated to this. Like some dudes that I haven't spoken to in a few years, and they were really serious. Like they were putting money behind it. And since I was at school at the time to learn game development, game art specifically, I was like, yeah, sure, I'll do it in my spare time. It's not like I was getting paid at the time. So I was just learning some of that, learning some of the game art stuff, and doing some more texture work, a little bit of 3D modeling for them, up until about 2018, I would say. Is when I stopped. Yeah.
with Squad though. Squad was a great. Squad was as close to it's that's an indie game that made it. So that gives you a good
Oh,
foundation,
yeah.
to
Like,
jump into the industry.
yeah, I mean, the way we did Squad, I would say it was pretty good because we were building the building blocks quite literally. Like, we're not. It was a very agile development workflow where you just find the fun essentially. You just build and then build on top of that. It wasn't like how PR was where it's just like, okay, let's just take what they did and make it. I mean, don't get me wrong, I probably would have preferred if Squad did that. But I mean, you kind of have to innovate somewhere. Whether or not that's good innovation or not, you might as well try. And
Yeah, well, I think the issue that you're talking about is just sometimes it's good
choices.
to innovate, but you don't always want to reinvent the wheel, kind of thing.
Yeah, and some of the choices that were made, both some of the choices that were made for like the assets and possibly even gameplay design were questionable in my opinion.
Yeah,
Uh, I'm a very I like authentic stuff. Like like if I'm gonna be portraying this group or this faction, I I do my due diligence and find references and research like what's correct. Like I'll go so far into just looking into a lot of the gear that soldiers wear and try to try to know the terminology for like the little bits and bobs on it, like the Velcro, the hook and loop, and all that stuff, like the actual terminology for this, because it helps. It helps you as a developer, as a game artist, to know. Because if you know what you're looking for, it's just so much easier.
well, yeah, if you're modeling something and you don't know how it works or how it
Yeah,
interacts or how like if it's a mechanical piece, you don't know how it's going to move.
yeah,
Like it can look
yeah,
really good, but the minute it's animated, poof, it can
yeah,
look weird and funky. I mean,
yeah.
with Squad, for instance, the tow missile in Squad, I had a little bit of a hand in that in terms
Yeah,
of
so
providing
like,
reference.
I mean, I don't know whose decision it was to not use the correct version, even though I got references from you actually and
Yeah, and I
pointed
was in
direct.
contact with the modeler,
Yeah,
but
so that was one of those are like some of the instances that kind of bugged me because I'm a very, like I said, I like authenticity, and if you're not doing it if you're not doing it right, even when you have like everything at your feet, then why do it at all?
yeah, and that's we're both built very similar in that realm of thinking because that was always something that you obviously know my gripes with certain things, and the toe was one of those things where I was in direct contact with the person who was actually modeling the tow, and they ended up going with the M220A4 launcher, which is that's basically your original tow launcher. We're going back to the 80s, and it's not incorrect per se, but both the Marines and the Army had switched to we call it the Army calls it the ITAS, the Marines call it the Sabre system. We switched that system in the 2000s. I mean, it was procured in the 90s, so it was a little weird to have a game where you have guys running around wearing OCPs and
Yeah,
have Mat
and
Vs and
and
yeah.
that was one of the things that bugged me is like some of the people were like, "Well, it's 5 to 10 years difference," and I'm like, "Well, they already had this stuff within that 10-year frame, so why are you choosing stuff that was built in the 70s?"
Yeah, 70s, yeah, 70s, 80s, and not only
Yeah,
that, I you had someone, I was feeding him information. Being a National Guard is a little behind on procurement and stuff, and even my unit had
but
M2A1s. We
you still
had
have the modern equipment, so I mean,
yeah,
come
but
on.
usually, even then though, you like I remember when I went to basic, they were like, "Oh, you probably won't see a 320 like your entire time in the National Guard." And I get to my unit, and we had M320s, we had the 240 Limas, we had M2A1 Brownings,
Yeah.
and we also got the PIP upgrade for the M4A1, so with the ambidextrous safety and all that. So it's like the National Guard's not even that far behind anymore. So it was a little weird, and it's a little for us, it was frustrating because, being both of us, I mean, I was still in the National Guard at the time, you being both of us being into authenticity and being authentic,
Yeah.
being able to tell, like, this is what we're seeing and stuff, and we also had friends that were 101st Airborne at the time deployed. We had, or 82nd
I mean,
deployed.
I also have friends that are in the Green Beret, so,
Yeah,
like, come on. Let's I have a bunch of resources.
yeah, all these different layers and stuff, and it's not the dump on squad, but it's just one of those things, like you said, if you're gonna do something, if you have the intel, the
Yeah,
information, what you need,
do it
do it
right.
right the first time, and then you don't run into the issues down the road. And I think that's
Yeah,
an organization failure where you want to set, I think the 5 to 10 years, especially when Squad was being developed, we're
I
talking
know.
2015, 2016,
It
10
was
years.
2013 it was 2013, 2014, I would say,
Oh, that's
when we
even
started.
worse because
So,
10 years,
yeah,
you're talking invasion of Iraq. And I
yeah,
mean, that's pre
where they
UCP times.
where they had nothing. They had, M16A2s and,
Yeah, you're talking
open door gun trucks. I mean,
Yeah,
come on.
you're talking what Woodland with DCU combination and stuff like,
Which is a
very
really cool aesthetic, though.
yes. I think we all agree that Woodland with or DCU with little Woodland is always
Yeah.
nice, but
Although my favorite look for the American soldier would probably have to be the Panama or Grenada invasion.
oh
Like,
yeah,
those dudes, they just yeah,
Panama
they're
with the scrim on the helmet. Yeah, there's
like, I'm not gonna lie, I'd probably, open 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 up for some of those dudes. No, I'm kidding.
yeah. I do think though that the 80s Woodland aesthetic is definitely yeah, you can't beat that.
Yeah, I mean, not to say soldiers nowadays don't look professional, because I think they do now, especially with, uh
OCP, yeah.
oh, yeah, OCP.
Yeah.
I think they do now. But back in the '80s, like, mid to late '80s, I think they looked dope. Like, they looked awesome.
Oh, yeah. I mean I think it sucks too because there's not enough video games that really take advantage of that
Well
80s, early 90s.
well, I would say, Black Ops 2, Call of Duty Black Ops 2. Because if you've ever
Yeah, the
played the
campaign,
single
yep.
yeah, if you ever played the single player campaign, the Panama invasion level, they actually got it right, I would say, because they had the scrim helmet, they had the Pasgets and all that stuff.
Yeah,
It
but that's
looked
only one
awesome.
level though.
I know.
A whole game set in that era. I mean, there's 83. You can look forward to 83 whenever they finish that, but that could be a while,
Although
especially with
that one's looking
pandemic.
pretty good, although I'm not too sure if they're doing any, any American faction, 'cause it's what, British right now?
Well, they modeled the Mutt.
Did
I
they?
don't think yeah, that was the latest vehicle was the Mutt. I don't know if the British used the Mutt.
I don't know.
I could be wrong. I thought British mostly used Land Rovers, but I could be wrong.
I don't drink tea and eat crumpets, so I don't know.
Yeah, it's not my forte. But So we tangent way off into aesthetics, but I mean that's exactly the point, though, is that it's good that there's someone who's working. I mean, it's not like you're making decisions.
No, but
Um,
I can definitely, provide my insight, which I have because I like to research a lot of this stuff, and I'll give my 2 cents. Whether or not that's taken, that information's taken, that's up to them. Because sometimes, especially in AAA gaming for development, there's an area on Call of Duty Vanguard that I worked on, and I wanted to do like a very specific look for one of these gun emplacements because I had references for how it looked at the time. This is how they would set it up, but it didn't look good in the grand scheme of things because visually it was not super appealing. I wouldn't say super appealing. It just didn't work for the specific area. So I did something that no soldier would have done for an emplacement because it just didn't make sense. But visually for what we were trying to achieve for that area, art wise, it made sense.
yeah, you had to make a decision where it
Yeah,
was in this case not gameplay specific, but game type
visually.
thing. Yeah,
Yeah, it's a visual thing. I mean, there was no real gameplay in that area anyways, but the player does go through there.
yeah. No, it makes sense. I mean, it's unfortunate when you can't. I mean,
Yeah,
movies been doing that this forever, so it's not.
yeah.
I mean, gameplay always trumps realism. We
Oh,
hear it all the
definitely,
time. So
definitely. I mean, that was my mantra in PR. It's like, okay, well, we can do something super realistic, or we can do something that actually is fun. So I'd much rather have something that is fun, but still maintains. It's still authentic enough to be
yeah,
realistic.
that's where authentic beats out realism. Generally speaking, you want authentic. You want it to look right. It's not always gonna
Yeah.
play exactly. And honestly, I don't know why you would want it to play exactly because a lot of times it would be just
It would just be like Arma. I mean,
yeah.
it would just be like Arma, where you're just walking around doing nothing for like 3 hours and then just die.
Yeah, hey, I get it. I get why people want to do that, but that's for a
I mean,
AAA game specifically. That's a no
yeah.
go.
So working on Call of Duty, I like I said, I try to provide my insight because my art director he knows that I'm a nerd for this stuff. Even my manager, he knows I'm a nerd for this stuff, and I just try my best. I just try my best to give my insight, my takes on what would work and what probably wouldn't work, especially for this time period. Because as an artist in general, or as a developer that's trying to do these historical pieces, you have to do a lot of your research to understand how understand the period and understand like the types of materials they were using. So, like for instance, there was this one area that I worked on where I originally put down like a plastic tarp on the ground, right? But then, I started thinking like, okay, did they even have plastic at that time? Would this group of people even use plastic? Would it be more of a canvas thing? And you start going through that kind of motion, and it's do a little research, and I was like, okay, I'll just switch it to like a canvas burlap or something. Small things like that.
I think the moral of that story too, when a game comes out, and this is not just Call of Duty, this is Battlefield, Call of Duty, Squad, anything.
Well, any military game, really.
If there's something that's inaccurate, unfortunately, it pains us. It probably pains some of the devs too. It's costs, it's decisions have to be made, things have to happen a certain
Yeah.
way.
A licensing is a huge one because you have to get approved by legal, and if it doesn't work, like for instance, the Hueys in Cold War, Black Ops Cold War, I was incredibly bummed personally. I was like,
I
wow,
think you guys probably could have got away with it, but the problem is when you look when you're legal and you're looking at the stuff, you're
yeah.
going, is it worth risking a lawsuit? Battlefield 3 had their issue with Bell Textron.
And Call of Duty with the Humvees. Yeah, I mean, I remember working on Squad, and we are like, okay, we have to take out the Humvees because we're getting sued to high hell about it.
Yeah, yeah, you guys were yeah. So and that's not you're not the only. That's not multiple companies had to rip their Humvees out because
Yeah.
I mean even the Command and Conquer remaster they didn't call it a Humvee in Tiberian
Oh yeah,
Dawn.
you're right.
They had to change it, and they even had to modify the model a little bit because,
Yeah.
it's unfortunate because it really shouldn't happen, but, I mean, I'm not a lawyer, so if I know if it
Which is
did
kind
happen,
of
but
dumb because it's a military vehicle paid by U.S. taxpayers.
yeah, I know. But besides our money being used for nefarious purposes, yeah, and that's the thing. I think people need to understand that, and that's one of the reasons I did want to have you on because I think a lot of people look at video games and they go, "Oh, why did they do this? Why did they do that?" Video games are a lot more scrutinized, I think, than movies are because movies don't seem to have that issue. If they have a Humvee in a movie, they don't have to worry about those things.
I know, which is quite ridiculous to be honest. But I
It's
think
a
it comes
little
down
weird.
to well, actually, I don't know. Maybe there is something going on for movies that we don't know about. Maybe there are certain licenses that they have to use.
Maybe it's also because it's a real product instead of being
Yeah, I don't really know.
an asset. I don't know.
There is that question of whether or not, like let's say you decide to model the entire DC build one of the Capitol buildings in DC, right? Let's say you decide to
Yeah.
model that. Well, who owns the art?
Ooh, that is a tough one because technically it's a public entity.
So that's like one of those things that comes up legally. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, obviously, for if we did something for a video game, it would have to be changed up significantly.
That's a really good question though, because who does own that art? I mean, do you own just specifically that asset,
Well, it would be
but not
owned.
obviously
Yeah, I guess it would be owned by the state at that point.
but if it's owned by the state, wouldn't it technically be owned by us? I don't know.
I don't know.
We're not lawyers, so we're
Yeah,
not lawyers, but that's why you guys have a legal team. You know, that's why if you are digital, if you were to get into indie development or something, keep that all in mind. Because
yeah,
even if you're a small indie developer, I mean, Squad was successful, but it wasn't like Squad was
yeah.
setting the
It's not
world
like we were.
afire with its greatness. You
It's not
know,
like we were buying licenses for everything. We're just larping things up.
yeah, yeah. So it doesn't matter who you are, how big you are, how small you are. They will come for you if they
Yeah,
think that they can,
yeah,
I think, if I'm not mistaken, I think Battlefield they ended up settling out of court with
yeah. They
Dell on
did,
that, but which was unfortunate because I think they
which
should have
makes me wonder
continued.
how
But
Portal's going to be. Because are they going to
that's
have
a
the
good point.
Humvees? Are they going to have the Venom? Are they going to have the Cobra, the Viper? I should say.
They have the Abrams. Yeah, I know I saw the Abrams in one
Yeah,
of
I
the
saw the
trailers.
Abrams
So
too.
the Abrams is would be technically a. I don't know if the Abrams is or not though because it's General Dynamics didn't. I mean General
Well,
Dynamics.
wasn't it made by a bunch of different companies throughout the years?
Yeah, well, General Dynamics picked up the contract.
Yeah,
I forget who. I think General Dynamics is owned by someone else now too, aren't they? So
I don't know.
I forget that line of succession, but yeah, it was completely different. You had Chrysler and then
Yeah,
GM
it was designed by
originally.
Chrysler, right?
Yeah, the original XM1 that got picked up was Chrysler. It got a significant redesign in its turret, and that led to the original uh, pre-production M1. And they made it for a certain number of years, and eventually that division of Chrysler got sold, got picked up by, or either it was sold or reformed, and then somewhere General Dynamics comes in the lines. I can't remember exactly, but that's where it gets weird because it's like technically because they probably own the rights because it's followed them, but at the same point, it's a procurement project from the United States military, the DoD. So wouldn't it's paid for by taxpayer money? It gets into that weird gray zone. I know a lot of people are probably listening to us at this point, going, "Why are they talking about legal stuff?" But it's foundation wise, it's important.
Big deal for games,
Yeah,
especially if you're trying to do authentic, weaponry or vehicles. You have
yeah, and
to
we don't want to
control it.
challenge your
Yeah,
debacle like War Thunder had either. That's another
yeah,
because when I was giving information about the toe, I was only giving information that you could Google and find.
yeah. I mean, you're not gonna like give out state secrets.
Exactly, and,
uh,
and I mean, I'll talk to people about stuff, but there's certain things that I know I just won't talk about, even though,
yeah.
like, you could probably find it if you look hard enough on the internet because way too much stuff is on the
Don't
internet
worry, you can tell
nowadays.
me.
Yeah, but that's another thing to keep in mind too, if you're a developer, you don't wanna you when you're doing research, you have to be careful about how deep you go into the research because you could step into a nightmare scenario where you get information you're not supposed to have, and you could be like Arma, where
Oh yeah, those guys got arrested.
their photograph teams, yeah, got arrested for looking at reference. And, I mean, to be honest, that one, I don't know, I don't remember the whole
Yeah,
story anymore, but that was
that was a
kind of
difficult.
dumb. But
Like maybe they should have
yeah,
known better because when we send teams out, we get approval from the city, the state, whatever. I mean, even if we're flying drones to take take pictures for photogrammetry, you have to follow those laws, and you have to be approved for it. So always follow the law.
Yeah, exactly. Always look up the laws. Always find out what's going on and stuff. And like I said, you don't want to run into an Arma situation, and you don't want to run into a War Thunder situation where War Thunder didn't do anything wrong, but classified information was being distributed on their forums, which puts them in
which is incredibly funny in my opinion. But
and they're also a Russian company
that too, which is probably no bueno.
So I think they might be Belarusian, but yeah. So if you're in this case, the mod, the Ministry of Defense in the UK, that's
like, oh my gosh,
and it happened again too.
Yeah,
I'm pretty sure it happened
the French tank. Like, I'm gonna win this argument because I know better.
Yeah, I have classified information. You can't beat me.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
And that's it's funny, but it's bad at the same point. So and that plays into it again. If it doesn't seem right, that's just because that's the best that they can get for information.
The only tank that can kill you out of the entire Russian armory is probably the T-80 BV right now, because that's the only thing that destroys me.
There's a lot of T-80s running around right now.
It's really annoying.
So like,
I just want to decimate everyone with my M1A2. Like, come on.
I want my American dominance, but
I'm waiting for them to add the Predator or some form of UAV.
It'd be like Command and Conquer General, is you have your own personal UAV that flies around.
That's what I'm saying. Is like, maybe because don't they want to do like the military? Don't they want to like have tank commanders integrate into that stuff?
That was the plan at one point. Yeah, use micro UAVs, integrate it with tank commanders, or integrate it with just anyone really in the ground. Give yourself increased information. I mean, you have that mission in Battlefield 3, the tank mission.
That one was really cool.
Tank mission, where you get to see like from the UAVs.
The only thing that was kind of dumb about the Battlefield 3 tank mission was that the tank commander was in control of everything. That's another thing that really bugs me. Oh my gosh, that's another thing that bugs me. So in squad, for the M1A2 Abrams gunner's position in squad, it uses the auxiliary sight. It bugs me. It bugs me so much.
It's actually the site that's directly it's co-witness basically with not co-witness. It's coaxially set up to
it's correct, but it's the auxiliary site. You're not going to be using it unless your digital site is messed up. Yeah, and what's dumb is that the reasoning behind it was like, well, we don't have a proper fire control system. Well, then why do you have the digital site for the Challenger or the T-72B3? Correct. Like, come on, you're just gimping the M1. Because you have that huge line of sight issue now.
Yeah, no, it really does. It's because you're set down and to the right. You do have a terrible field of view versus the doghouse that's on the top of the turret. So
that's the kind of authenticity that bugs me if you don't get it right. Like, it works for Battlefield.
I mean,
like visually for Battlefield 3 and 4 and all those others, is that it makes sense because you're not gonna have. For gameplay, it makes sense to have the view model on your right, on your bottom right, because that's the most aesthetically pleasing point. But if you have, it's a standard first-person shooter thing.
Yeah.
But for like a game like Squad, that's supposed to be realistic. Why pick the auxiliary site?
Well, not only that. You had to go through the process of making the auxiliary site, like making the overlay and all that. I mean, Gunner Heat PC, for instance, they go a completely different direction. Gunner Heat PC, they have their proper site for the Abrams, the proper site, proper lead for the laser.
They have a proper fire control system.
Yeah,
that's modeled in,
and it makes sense because their game is primarily it's all very basically tanks, but
it's basically a what was that combat sim game called? Steel Beast is basically like a Steel Beast light.
Yeah, it is Steel Beast light. It's Steel Beast where you don't need a manual to actually play the game.
Yeah,
because Steel Beast is great, but man, dude,
I love Steel Beast. I'm just terrible at it.
The detail and stuff, it's crazy. But yeah, no, and that actually that's a really good one where I was always like, man, it came off as a weak excuse for not putting in the correct site.
Yeah, it was a really terrible excuse. Like, I understand for other games, why the view model is the way it is, but for Squad, using the auxiliary site because we don't have a digital site.
And it's the same thing with the toe being the wrong model. Come on.
And
not only that, I don't think they ever modeled the thermal site.
No, they never did. The reasoning behind that was, well, we could use it for the insurgent faction. Y'all never used it for the insurgent faction. You just gave them the SPG anyways. Oh,
Oh, and they gave him. What did you you modeled something? Didn't you model the Cornet? No. What did you model?
yeah, I did model the Cornet. That's
Yeah, they ended up giving them the Cornet.
No, did they?
I'm pretty sure. Yeah, I thought they gave them the Cornet.
I thought they were still using the SPG.
Maybe they are still using the SPG. I thought they gave them. I thought they eventually. But either way, like, yeah, that was poor thinking, poor planning. Not only that, if your main faction, like, if you're looking at it from a larger picture, you either give the Americans the current issue, or you give the insurgents the current issue, or you give both the older gen. I mean, it makes more sense to go current issue.
Yeah.
And they never modeled the thermal sight. And I remember telling them, hey, if you're going to do this one, you got to model the thermal sight because there is a separate sight. The old TOW, you had a day sight, and then on top of it, you had a completely separate unit that locked into the top, and it was a thermal sight. And, it was completely separate. I mean, there's a huge, I don't want to go too much detail into this, but the difference between the old 220 launcher and the ITAS is night and day. The ITAS is a completely digital, computerized system with amazing joysticks on the side. They're not really joysticks; they're like little handle things, and you got full control over the system, multiple settings. And it's a vastly superior system. The TOW is very underrated in my opinion. People think it's this old system. TOW 2 Bravos should rip through anything that you come up on the modern battlefield.
It'll destroy like all the cool stuff.
Looking at you, War Thunder. I don't know if you nerfed the TOW 2 Bravo, but I've been having some issues with it. It should be doing better than it does. But
it should be schwacking those pesky T90s.
Yeah, pretty much everything. I think people underestimate the power of the TOW 2 Bravo and how it takes out tanks. People always want to. The Javelin's amazing too, but people always want to talk about how great the Javelin is. The TOW 2 is just as good. The only disadvantage the TOW has is the obvious one, which is you have to stare at the target.
Javelin's lame.
Javelin, at least you could fire and then scoot and shoot. You don't have to sit there.
No, it's lame.
Yeah. I unfortunately never got any time on the Javelin, which I always that sucks. But
I got time to watch it, so there's that.
But
I'm gonna watch a video right now.
But those are the things. And again, this is the if it pains us. If it pains us as gamers, it's going to pain. There's certain devs that are going to be like, "Oh man, I wish we could have did this," but it is what it is, and
I'm sure there's other devs that are into the same stuff that we're into that makes their head scratch. But I know there's a few devs that play Tarkov, for instance. Like I love Tarkov, I just suck at it, and I don't play it anymore because I suck at it.
Yeah, we don't.
I don't have time to do it, but I love it because of the authenticity that they add to it. Like they model. I'm a gun nerd. I love guns, and I just love the customization, even the gear that they have for all the loot. Like I love that stuff because I'm gonna admit I'm kind of a nerd, and I have some plate carriers for myself. And just seeing that type of stuff in game that's accurate to what it is, like to what I own, is pretty cool. Like I have a Team Wendy helmet, ballistic helmet, and they have a Team Wendy ballistic helmet in the game. So I was like, oh, you know what? I want to make a character based on me. I mean, that's kind of cool.
Yeah, he's got the Gucci. He's got the Gucci gear, and I guess we gotta say it. He's got one piece of Gucci gear that I am envious, and it's Gucci as all Gucci can get.
Yeah, it's a little expensive too. It's so I bought some Gen 3 RNVGs a few months back for night shooting, and I have not gone shooting with them yet. Mainly because I can't find a range around where I live that allows night shooting. So it's like a $6,000 brick sitting in my closet.
But you got them.
I got them.
Walk around your apartment in the dark with them. So I mean that's a thing.
And I have. I've even done like dry fire reloads with them. So it's pretty cool. Like I want some range time behind them.
Do you have a PEC?
I have a D-ball.
Okay, yeah.
I do want to get a full power pack 15, but those can range from like 1600 to well, whatever. So I am looking out for one, but I do like my D-ball.
As much as I envy you having night vision, I will say one thing: I did not like wearing night vision when I was in.
Over the summer when I went to Wyoming, I was using some rental PVS-14s. It really wasn't that bad, but then again, I only had like a few hours usage. You probably had a few days of usage on yours.
I mean, I can
So,
imagine even. I mean, I never deployed, so I can imagine in combat using them. But it's just that they're just not comfortable to use after a while, and especially if you're using a single tube. And we always were only monotubed. We just you just it starts to get at you for a while. Your eyes just start to.
I'd imagine, like, especially with the green phosphor tubes.
Yeah,
I
you go to
mean,
bed, you close your eyes, and you just have a green circle permanently
yeah.
in your eye for like, an hour. You get used to it, but it's just one of those things where like everyone's like, "Oh, night vision is so cool," and it's like, yeah, I don't know. I mean,
I do want to get a set of just get a PVS-14 just to have.
oh, I do too. Yeah.
I do see the benefits of having a monocular over binoculars.
Oh, there's tons of benefits. I know. I,
Yeah,
I want to own PBS 14 specifically, but
yeah,
at least as like just one and roll a kit like the kit that I would wear when I was in. But like
yeah.
if I was in the turret, I relied more heavily on the toes thermal sight or pseudo thermal sight than
I
on
imagine. I mean, you
or
could see.
on my 240 because I had a 240 as my as a
Well,
secondary.
don't they use like the tow thermal sights, especially like in Afghanistan? Didn't they use that to scan the horizon?
Yeah, so yeah, it's the advantage of the tow system. The ITAS can be used for observation purposes and stuff. I mean, you have the LRAS, which is the same kind of.
Same thing.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing, but it's a more condensed down into a box, and it's not as you'll see them on scout platoons on their Humvees and stuff.
I bet it's the same components in a
It
different
most
housing.
likely is the same components. From my understanding, it's pretty. Oh, I mean, the Bradley uses the same system as the tow. It's the MBAS,
Hmm.
or the improved. I think it might be IMBAS maybe now, but yeah, it's similar system. Borrows from it, but yeah, I always relied on the tow because A, it was thermal, and B, you had zoom. Um,
Not only that, but it's thermal.
yeah, it gets hard to identify things in night vision after certain, things.
Yeah.
Depth perception leaves, and then you don't know what you're looking at. And
Well, the problem with night vision is that I mean, you're still looking at a 2D image
yes,
regardless.
yeah,
I mean, it's compressing all that 3D image into a 2D image. So it doesn't matter. I mean, if you're wearing binoculars or a quad, it's still a 2D image
yeah,
at
you're
the end
still
of the
looking
day.
through a screen basically. And with the toe, you're looking through a screen, but you're looking through two eye holes. You have two adjustable eye
Yeah.
pieces. You have zoom, so you can at least verify what you're looking at. And you also have just a wider field. Obviously, not close up, but as you get further out, you have that wider vision. So I always relied on that. But like when we did night shooting or we did anything at night, you brought your night vision on. I mean, I will say it was fun shooting with like a PEC 15, but
Yeah.
uh,
It's fun seeing that laser.
yeah, you pop it up and
Yeah.
yeah,
What reminded what's funny is that I did like a quick bore sight with my D-ball at home, and I have a fairly small apartment. So I was just, guessing at that point. But when I went out to the range, I was actually surprised how well it was
it was on the money.
uh yeah,
Dude, I hated bore sighting lasers. Oh, that was just
because I know because there's a couple things you can do for sighting in your laser, right? And I think the most common one, at least for the military, is parallel sighting, right?
yeah, yeah. There's a couple different
Yeah,
methods. Yeah. Oh, it's the same thing with your sights, how you hold your sights, how
yeah.
you do what
Oh,
your light, all that stuff.
I I hate I hate, sighting in my optics. It's such a pain in the ass.
Yeah, luckily the military they have it down pretty good.
But yeah.
That's that. I actually liked going to the range. You go to the 25-yard range first. I had an ACOG, so easy time. But it was easy. You just for us it was just we put a target up. I think it was like 3 rounds at a time. You made adjustments. I usually was good within like the first 10, 12 rounds, whatever it was. And then you go over to the qual range. I mean, Army riflemanship or marksmanship is I don't want to say it's easy, but it's not complicated. I mean, you had pop up targets, and you just
That
that's
sounds
what.
more fun, but I don't really like going to the range to go shooting because I think that's pretty boring. Like bench shooting, just it's not exciting for me.
Oh,
So
barrier shooting is where it's at, dude. When you're doing like
yeah,
movement to barriers and stuff.
using VTAC barriers and doing like actual drills, like running drills and stuff, it's so much fun.
When we did live at basic, when we did that training, and we were doing
Yeah,
barrier moving shoot, you're two people and you're bounding off each other and stuff. That was when it was live ammo. That was fun. That was actually extremely fun. The
yeah,
advanced marksmanship in the army was basic. That was incredibly fun. But the basic marksmanship stuff is pretty basic. But I mean, I the range day for us was always fun. You just go out there, you qual your weapon, and then sometimes you get a chance to go back in. Sometimes, a lot of times we did with Pro Mask, with an M50 on or an M40 earlier on for me. And then at night you'd go back out on the range, do a night shoot, and then that was it. And I always had fun doing that. But
yeah.
okay, so we're getting pretty late in this one. So I'm going to say that we will come back again with you. I know this was a bit of a different episode for most people, but I mean, it's not like I had any episodes recently anyways. So not something is better than nothing. If you guys enjoyed listening to this, uh, I will have Matt back on because I can force him now. I can ask him to come back on. We'll probably do it again. The other good news is that Bailey is back from where he was, so he'll be coming back on hopefully eventually soon. And then I also am going to try to upgrade the podcast, hopefully when I get some money, to more than two guests. Um, Obviously online it's not a problem, but in person I can only do two at the moment because my audio interface. So thank you, Matt, for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, no problem. Had fun talking.
Yeah, this is pretty much how we normally talk. This isn't any
Yeah,
different
we
than
we just
honestly.
nerd out.
Yeah. And with that being said, well, I'll end it here and we will call it a day. But I hopefully will be able to get back on and doing this more often and whatnot. So as always, have a good day.